It was nearly midnight when the sedan pulled into the darkest corner of the gas station lot. Emma had worked the night shift for 3 years, but something about this car made her uneasy. The young man who finally stepped out seemed normal enough, browsing chips, comparing candy bars, until he approached the counter and pulled what looked like a gun from his jacket. Then a second voice cut through the silence. "This is a robbery. I have a bomb." The night shift at the gas station on Route 47 was usually quiet. Emma Carter had worked there for 3 years, and she knew the rhythm of these late hours. The hum of the refrigerators, the occasional trucker stopping for coffee, the empty stretches of highway beyond the fluorescent glow of the pumps. She had seen it all during her shifts. Drunk drivers, lost travelers, delivery trucks making their rounds. It was nearly midnight when headlights swept across the empty parking lot. Emma glanced up from the register. A sedan pulled in slowly, its movements deliberate. Instead of stopping at the pumps, it rolled past them and parked in the darkest corner near the exit. The shadows swallowed most of the vehicle, leaving only a faint outline visible. The engine stayed running. Emma could see a figure behind the wheel, but they didn't move. She went back to restocking the cigarette display behind the counter, but her attention kept drifting to the windows. The car just sat there. The longer it remained, the more uneasy she felt. Minutes passed. 5, then 10. The figure remained motionless. Emma felt a knot forming in her stomach. Why would someone pull into a gas station and just sit there in the dark? She told herself it was nothing. Maybe they were on the phone. Maybe they were checking directions. Maybe they were just tired and needed a moment before coming inside. But her instincts whispered otherwise. Something felt wrong. Finally, the car door opened. A young man stepped out, maybe 19 or 20. He stood beside the vehicle for a moment, looking around the empty lot. His posture was tense. Something about the way he moved set off alarm bells in Emma's mind. Then he started walking toward the store, hands buried deep in his jacket pockets, head down. Emma straightened up as he approached the entrance. The bell chimed when he pushed through the door. She watched him carefully, her hand resting near the phone under the counter. Her thumb hovered over the buttons, ready to dial if needed. But he seemed completely normal. He wandered down the snack aisle, picking up a bag of chips. He grabbed a soda from the cooler, the door squeaking shut behind him. He even stopped to compare candy bar prices, holding 2 different brands side by side. He acted like any other customer on a late-night snack run. Emma began to relax. Maybe she had been paranoid. Maybe he really was just a customer making a late-night snack run. The young man approached the counter with his items. Emma forced a smile and rang them up. The register beeped as she scanned each product. She told him the total. Then his hand emerged from his jacket pocket. He was holding what looked like a gun. The metal glinted under the fluorescent lights. Emma's blood turned to ice. The young man's voice was low and shaking. He told her this was a robbery. He demanded she hand over the money. Emma's hands shook as she fumbled with the cash register. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She tried to insert the key, but her trembling fingers kept slipping. The drawer wouldn't open. This couldn't be happening, not to her, not tonight. She tried again. The key scraped against the lock. Her vision started to tunnel. Was this really happening? The young man's voice turned sharp. He told her to hurry up. He warned her not to make him use the gun. He waved it at her, and Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had never been so terrified in her life. She glanced at the panic button mounted under the counter, just inches from her hip. But if she reached for it, he would see. He would know. What would he do then? Would he panic? Would things get worse? Emma whispered that she was trying. She explained that the register sometimes stuck. Her voice came out small and broken. The young man began pacing behind the counter, his movements jerky and agitated. He kept checking the windows, scanning the empty parking lot for approaching cars. Every set of headlights in the distance made him flinch. His nervousness made everything worse. A desperate person was an unpredictable person. Emma knew that much. Emma finally got the drawer open. The bell inside dinged softly as it slid out. She started pulling out bills with shaking hands, placing them on the counter one at a time. 20s, 10s, 5s. Each second stretched into an eternity. Would this be enough? Would he leave once he had the money? Then everything changed. A gruff voice cut through the tension from somewhere behind the aisles. It announced that this was a robbery. It claimed to have a bomb. The teenager whirled around, his eyes going wide with shock. A middle-aged man stood near the back of the store, pointing what looked like another gun directly at him. Where had he come from? Had he been there the whole time? Was this a robbery within a robbery? Emma's mind reeled, unable to process what was happening. The middle-aged man stepped closer, his voice steady and commanding. He ordered the teenager to drop the weapon. He told him to do it now. His tone left no room for argument. The teenager's composure completely shattered. His face went pale. He shouted that the gun was fake, that it wasn't real. He threw the plastic toy down onto the floor, where it clattered and bounced. Then he slumped against the candy rack, his whole body trembling. Suddenly, red and blue lights flooded through the windows, painting the inside of the store in alternating colors. A police cruiser pulled up right outside the entrance, its siren whooping once before going silent. Help had arrived, but for whom? The teenage boy scrambled to his feet, his face filled with relief. He started shouting, pointing at the middle-aged man. He yelled for help, claiming there was a thief in the store. Two officers burst through the door, hands on their holsters, but they didn't move toward the middle-aged man. They moved straight toward the teenager. One officer grabbed the young man's arms and spun him around. The other began reading him his rights. The teenager sputtered in confusion, asking what they were doing. He kept insisting they had the wrong person, pointing frantically at the man with the gun. But the middle-aged man simply lowered his weapon. He turned to Emma and asked if she was okay. One of the officers explained what had actually happened. The man was David Hayes. He owned the gas station. He had been in the back storage room doing inventory when he heard raised voices up front. He had immediately called the police, then grabbed a prop gun from his office and made up the bomb threat to stall the robber until help arrived. It was a calculated risk, but it had worked perfectly. The teenager had been so rattled by the sudden turn of events that he immediately gave up. He revealed his own weapon was fake, essentially confessing to attempted robbery right there on the spot. As the officers led him toward the patrol car, the young man kept shaking his head in disbelief. He couldn't seem to grasp what had gone wrong. He had tried to rob a gas station without knowing the owner was inside. He had panicked at the first sign of real resistance, and in his confusion, he had literally called the police on himself by begging them for help. Every choice he made had worked against him. David stood with Emma near the counter as they watched the cruiser drive away, its lights fading into the distance. He remarked that it had to be the worst robbery attempt he had ever seen. Emma finally let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. The whole thing had lasted maybe 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. She looked at David, grateful he had been there, grateful for his quick thinking. The teenage robber became something of a local legend after that night. He was known as the kid who got outsmarted by his own target and ended up begging the police to arrest him. The story spread through town, a reminder that sometimes criminals defeat themselves. And you, if you had been in Emma's position that night, would you have kept your cool the way she did?